Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see quite a few people here. My name is Ben Howard. I work for Apple Park Limited. I'm a lead consultant, managing director, invoicing man and everything, so I am the organisation. So I am a quite select and niche project server consultancy. We're here today just to talk about kind of a warts and all, if we can, Project Server 2007 case study. And we'll run through kind of why Project Server and what's its impact and relationship to SharePoint as well. Alongside me, I've got Paul Terry. I'll let Paul do an introduction.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Paul Terry. I'm a Programme Manager responsible for the project management team within Attenda Limited, which is a IT service hosting company.
Okay, so let's keep this, if we can, let's keep it interactive. I think we've probably got about an hour. We'll both be around afterwards. I'm only here for this afternoon at SharePoint conference, but my and Paul's actually contact details are on the end of the slide, so please feel free to contact us. And we're kind of going to do a Paul and Ben show, so I'll do a couple of slides, Paul will do others, ask me the easy questions and ask Paul the hard ones, okay?
So just to give you a quick introduction to Attenda, so this is the company that I work for that contracted Ben to come and do the Project Server implementation with myself. So Attenda operates a managed service business, which is we class as always on. So we manage clients' applications in our data centres to ensure that they have 24/7 management of those platforms. Those platforms can be wide-ranging from internally developed applications to Microsoft product-hosted applications, so based on SQL Server, SharePoint services. We don't have, I was asked this question earlier, we don't actually have any other project server implementations that we host for other clients, but I know one of our clients has engaged Ben to deploy project server within their business. So our focus in Attenda is solely on IT operations. So we make sure that the platform is available 24/7. And we offer money-back guarantees if that's not the case. So we offer industry-leading SLAs on application availability. We have 134 clients across a wide-ranging and diverse amounts of business. I'll give you some examples. British Midland, the airline company, we host their systems. Princess Foods from the food production business area, we host their solutions. Also retail, River Island, we host their platform as well. And a lot of companies we host a DR facility for them as well. So if one platform or one data centre went down, we have a platform that's what I'd call a hot standby held in another data centre to bring that online so their business can continue. Attenda has many endorsements, and I haven't put them all up there. Obviously, Microsoft Gold Partner, but also we were voted the European 2010 VMware Partner. We have SAP, PCI, ISOs, all of the industry-leading accreditations Attenda have on board.
Okay, cool. So some big names. So to go from a very big company that supports lots of large organisations to a fairly niche company. So I kind of set up Apple Park about 7-8 years ago purely as a project server focused organisation. So literally my time is sold to organisations to help them understand and implement and deploy, configure, install, train and manage and then support Project Server. So I started doing that around 2003 time frame. For those of you who know the products, and then 2007, and now, of course, 2010. My customers, I do have some big ones. Microsoft is one of mine. I'm off to Finland to do some training in that solution quite soon. Obviously, Attenda, some others, Princess Foods, and a fair few large organisations, as well as quite a few niche ones. So my focus solely is on project server implementation, rather than kind of the more general SharePoint side of things. So that's all I do. Sustainable and pragmatic deployments. Everyone's got to have a tagline, haven't they? Sustainable in the fact that actually you can count on one hand the number of times myself and Paul have had a discussion since he went live in Project Server. Okay, so my goal is to get on site, to do some training, to do a ton of knowledge transfer, to do the implementation, the configuration, all the documentation, and then leave my customers in a state where they can self-support themselves. That's the sustainable piece. So I don't want Paul phoning me up every 2 days to say, Ben, how do I do this? Or Ben, how do I do that? Because I'm probably going to be out on another site helping another customer. So part of my ethos is to make my customers self-supporting. I'm pragmatic in terms of if the solution's not going to do anything, or if there's an easy way to do something which doesn't involve writing a load of code, we'll go for that. Okay, I'm not there to sell a ton of days for people because I don't have a bench of consultants waiting to be sent out on site. Okay, so I want sustainable, pragmatic, easy to deploy, and therefore successful solutions. Okay, so any EPM solution, any enterprise project management solution that you deploy, I don't care whether it's Microsoft or anybody else's, kind of consists of three things, okay? People and organizations. So you've got to get your people and your organization behind this. You've then got to have some processes, and then you need some tools and technology to support that. These three, of course, are linked together, and the size of the relevant circles here really attempts to explain or give you a visual cue as to the relative importance of the circles. Okay, so the important piece in an EPM deployment is people and the organisation and the processes. Now that's got to be supported by the tool piece, obviously. Okay, but the tool piece is, if you like, the least significant piece. So some people will come to me and will say, Ben, we've installed Project Server, and now we want it to run our business. Well, that's kind of a wrong way of thinking about it. It's just a tool. It's a bit like a hammer. Okay, you can go and buy a hammer, but it's absolutely useless unless you want to actually knock a nail into a piece of wood. If what you really need is a screwdriver, then you should have gone and bought a screwdriver. But you won't know that until you've planned how you're going to build your house. So don't go and buy your tools. Go and work out what you want a solution to do. Work out the people, the process piece, and then go and buy a tool to help you support that. Okay, so that's any EPM solution. We're in a SharePoint environment, a SharePoint conference. So this is a slide that tells you how Project Server 2007 sits into SharePoint and how that stack from Microsoft works together. It's very similar for 2010. So Project Server 2007 obviously has been and gone. 2010's come out. But the stack is very similar. So at the bottom, you've obviously got Windows Server 2008 now. Windows SharePoint services. When Project Server 2002 came out, Microsoft integrated with SharePoint Team Services. Anybody remember that? STS? Yeah. Then with 2003, it was WSS2, as it was called. Then with 2007, it was Windows SharePoint Services 3. And then with 2010, it's now SharePoint Server. So Microsoft have had this relationship for the collaboration side of their EPM suite. Since 2002, they've also always used the SharePoint piece. So it's a key part of the SharePoint stack, and for 2010 you have to have SharePoint Server installed, and Project Server is a hosted application within SharePoint Server. So it looks and it feels the same. It isn't exactly the same, it's developed in a slightly different way, but it looks and it feels the same. All of the data is stored in various SQL databases, 5. We've got a Windows SharePoint Services Content DB, and then you've got 4 Project Server databases. And at the middle tier, you have your application server, web front-end server that hosts Project and Project Server. And at the front end, you then basically have a couple of clients. You've got Project Professional or Project Web App, PWA. Again, we're not going to be demoing any of those today, but there's a Microsoft stand downstairs. You can go and have a look at the 2010 solution if you want. So that's kind of how it all sits together. On the right-hand side, you've kind of got all the other things that you could customize and code into to access the data that you've got. Okay. The point about an EPM solution, Enterprise Project Management Solution, is that you have all of your resources and all of your projects in one place. That's called SQL Server. And then you expose or light them up, if you like, via the web interface and via various reports. So that's kind of how it stacks up. I wanted to put that one in. Who are our audiences when we we implement an EPM system. Well, I nicked this slide. I nicked all the slides, really. But it's not quite true. But I certainly did nick this one. We look at project managers, and from a project perspective, a Microsoft project perspective, we try and give those guys great tools, i.e. Microsoft Project, to develop project schedules with, to report on those schedules, to track milestones, to do resourcing against, etc. That's one of our key users. Resource managers, and this is a key win, I think, for Paul. We look for the resource managers to say, where's our scarce resource, where are our bottlenecks, which resource skills are we going to need coming down the line in 6 months' time. So that's what we try and give project resource managers, that view on the world. And then team members. So what am I expected to do today? Which particular task or set of tasks am I supposed to focus on this week, and how do I report that back to the project manager? So those are kind of three key customer areas, if you like, when you go and implement a project server solution. A fourth one that I put on there, so this really focuses on getting stuff done. Fourth one which I put on there is stakeholders. Of course, what reports do you need out of the system as a stakeholder? Okay, which projects are running late, which projects are in which phase, which projects are for which customer, which projects have this or that funding type. Okay, so again, a plethora of reports. And the reporting is often where you'll start a project server implementation from, because you'll say to the business, what do you need to run your business? What reports do you need to run? And you can almost work backwards from that perspective then to configure the system to produce those reports on a regular scheduled basis. Okay, so that's execution excellence, and over to Paul.
Okay, so the next few slides I'm going to run through a real business example of how and what Attenda did to engage this, and what we needed to support us in the future on how fast our business was actually growing. So I actually joined Attenda back in June 2007 after coming from an organisation that was a worldwide organisation called DHL, the courier company, and I was a program manager for them. Going into a team of people that consisted of 5 people was a massive change for me, but also, ultimately what it highlighted to me was the first thing that we needed to do is look at what do we actually want to get out of our project management team. So what are the processes that are in place today? Are they scalable for the future? Because if we were going to grow into this business, if we don't have that underpinning how we grow the business, it's going to fall apart. So the first job that we did is look at how we issue our workloads, what tools, as in Excel work packages, we used to actually issue the work, how we managed the receipt of that work to the end user and back to the project manager. What actually that told us is that we were spending an enormous amount of time in project management on what I class as noise, admin noise. We weren't actually project managing, we were actually just issuing work instructions and then having to chase up to 10 people in a project for those work instructions back. So we then started thinking, okay, fundamentally we've got the processes in place. What we need now is a tool to help us bring that all together into one central place, because within Attenda we would have different drives within our shared infrastructure that actually we would store sales documents on or project documents on, and if ever you tried to backtrack to find out where that project was, it was impossible. So 2008 was spent putting what I call the foundations in place, making sure that we had the right project management tools in place, and the process in particular, what financial reporting aspects that we'd require. And then in 2009, I gave Ben a call and said, we've got a feeling that we need a tool that sounds like Microsoft Project Server. Can you come in and actually verify this against our requirements? So Ben travelled down in early 2009 to review a high-level business case that we'd put in place to see if this was the answer to our prayers.
That's a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Answer to prayers.
What did we see the expected benefits? So in the business case, and this is an extract from the actual business case, I have to say, looking back on it, how I got away with only putting a 10% saving in there to my bosses, I do not know, because actually it probably saved a substantial bit more than 10% of our time and the resources time by implemented Project Server, which I will come on to. The key to me is around a central place that everybody involved in projects, stakeholders, can see where that project is in its life cycle. We can get joint lessons learned. We can create workspaces by team so they can actually communicate with each other. We can put on their wikis, so to speak, or ideas and capture all of that information in a single place, rather than have it dotted around 20 different places, which made my job an impossible task to manage the different teams or manage the deliverables from the different teams. Again, increase control and visibility of the key project documentation. Why waste our time sending out 20, 30 emails when we can just point people to one project workspace that the key documents that they need to understand are contained within? So in our world, it's a bit like a business case, but it's actually a client delivery document that we actually publish there. That is what we deliver to the customer, what is contained within that document. So that's one of the critical documents that we put in there. Also, project managers have a budget to manage. So what we sold it for, how much have we sold that delivery for? We have to make sure we deliver within the confines of that budget. That's held within the workspace. And what happens is the project managers report back to me on a fortnightly basis of where they are in that project and if there's any projected overspend. Before, it was left to one-to-ones to actually extract out where we were, running different reports, whereas actually we can glean the information at a click of a button from the project workspace. I think from a senior management point of view, the bottom point is the most critical. All of the cost saving around project management is great, but better decision making is going to be absolutely crucial as our business grows. And already in the last 2 years, our business has grown 20% year on year. If we didn't change, we wouldn't survive, because we can't just keep throwing people at these problems. It's got to be, we need the tools to support a sustainable future for us. So to myself now, one of the key benefits that I see out of it is I use it for justifying ongoing resource management to the VPs. So if I need new resources, I can plumb in expected projects that are landing from sales, and it gives me a 6-12 month view of how that's going to hit our resource availability in the different teams. And let me just explain, we may have 5 different delivery teams within Attenda that are involved in a project. So from networking and security, build engineers, they could be Unix, they could be Microsoft engineers, monitoring platform teams. So there's a number of different teams within this platform. But what I can do is print out a visual example of what we need going forward from a resource basis. And like now, we're actually employing about 5 people based on what our forecast sales are in the next quarter. Whereas before, I used to have to go and run financial reports. I'd have to go and try and look at what we did last year to deliver that sort of volume of deal. Now it's in one place and I can run it in the space of an hour and present that to my senior management. So why Project Server? There was a key set of criteria that we laid down within the business case. It created all of the functional requirements that we set out in the business case. It was easy to use. We could integrate it with our current DMS platform, which sits on SharePoint. One of the key things for me is we've got internal resources, obviously, that are SharePoint SQL experts. So it's a platform that we can maintain in our day-to-day as we would for any client. We can put it through the same processes, the same 24/7 management to make sure this is an always-on environment. And I'll give you an example right near the end of where that is critical to me in how reliant you become on that product. There's integration with the existing MS Office platform. So Outlook, you can create the tasks within the resource calendars from this product. If you have any questions, please fire away as you go through, unless you want to save them up to the end.
Or unless you're shy.
Yeah.
So, some real key benefits, and I did actually cut and paste those business case requirements off the original business case. So I wanted to share those with you, and Paul didn't mind on that. And we've got some figures which we think, well, he's done the benefits, so Paul will talk to you about the benefits. So the implementation approach. This is a timeline of Project 2010. So I took our project plan that I'd created in 2007 and just dumped that into 2010 and said, I'll have these points on the timeline, please. So there's my selling piece for 2010 over and done with. I should get my fiver or pint later off the MS representative in the room. But what I wanted to show on this is we started around the 11th of May with a very quick meeting, or an afternoon meeting in the boardroom at Attenda, and we had a couple of vice presidents in there, VPs, and Paul and a few other people, and said, this is what we want to do, can we do it? And we had a look around, and ultimately, very shortly after that, I was engaged to run a proof of concept, which lasted 5 days around this time, and that 5-day proof of concept really said, Project Server does what it says on the tin. You get the marketing box, you go down to Dixon's, you buy Project Server, and on the side it says, we'll integrate into Exchange Server and can do resource management. It has this big list of stuff that it will do. So you kind of use a proof of concept. We use a proof of concept, and I often use proof of concepts just to validate, does it do what it says on the tin? Will it do that for the customer? Okay, it's also a great opportunity for me to get in front of a customer and say, what's this customer like? Because some customers are really neat and switched on, and others aren't so neat and not switched on. Those are customers who aren't here. So it gives me an opportunity to validate the customers, which means that, I get an idea of whether this is going to fly or not in my customers. So proof of concept's quite useful. I guess from Paul's perspective, he gets to see whether I can cut the mustard or not within his organisation. We'll leave that one there. So we did a proof of concept, and I said to Paul, you've got to have your processes in place. And he said, did that last year. That's cool. I said, you've got to get some people trained, and we've got to think about this, and here's the implementation approach. So we then kind of went away. Paul had to think about all of that. I had a couple of holidays. Paul had a couple of holidays. And then we said, let's reconvene after August, because August, of course, is really busy for everybody, because we all like to take a couple of months off and go jetting around the world, as if. So we reconvened and began to configure and run a pilot from, it was early-ish September. We started to pick up on the information that we had in the proof of concept. And the proof of concept, we'd done some configuration in. We had some screenshots. We had some reports out of there. We'd presented at the end of the proof of concept to the senior team and other key users as well. So we kind of had got their buy-in. So that was our starting point here early September to say, OK, let's go and build a brand new system. And let's create that. We'll call that our pilot. And let's start to document how we're going to configure that. Or let's configure it and begin to document how we're going to configure it. Okay? There was a little stage before that, which myself and Paul sat down and we said, OK, Paul, what benefits do you really want to achieve? How are you going to decide whether this is going to be successful? What benefits are we going to get when we go live at the beginning of 2010, which was Paul's goal for his live implementation? So we sit down, we have a look at the first set of business requirements, if you like, and we configure the configuration or the application, get it installed, get it configured. That's step one. Then start to just run some validation through there, so some user acceptance testing, if you like. Now you've configured it, Ben. Will it actually do what we think it can do? Show me the resource matrix for work for the next 6 months. Show me who's over-allocated. Show me the team members' view so that they can see what's going to happen. Show me and help me understand how project managers and resource managers and team members and stakeholders are going to interact in the system. So that was kind of this area within the pilot, was partly UAT, partly training of key resources. And towards the end of that, we sign that off and we end up with some documentation, which is, from my perspective, the solution document and the process guides for the users. Okay, so there's a couple of things in here. Probably, I'm not sure if you'd agree, you need to raise the bar of your project manager's use of Microsoft Project. Yeah. So, but what I'm not about to do is write a 1,000-page manual on how to use MS Project, because you can go and buy those from Amazon or wherever, and they're all really good. So what I tend to do is I tend to focus on the touch points between the process that Attenda have and Project Server. So Attenda will sit down and we'll have a sales meeting and say, right, these are the sales, this is our sales pipeline. Which ones of these projects do we want to get on our system? So we need to load those on the system. It's a specific project type. It might be a web server build. It might be a hosted environment for XYZ. But we can then model which resources we put on there. Okay, so it's about putting the right resources on. It's about the touch point between using Project Server and the process in Attenda. So that's what that documentation piece does. And then we went off. I disappeared for a little while, and we had a lot of snow. And I remember Paul ringing me up when I was on Christmas holiday saying, well, with just one query, but the point is, Paul did some work then, 21st December to 31st December, okay, where he took all the old projects, which were just kind of sitting around in MSP, Microsoft Project, in MPP plans, and he imported them into Project Server. Okay, so again, my ethos, I can teach Paul how to do everything, and I can go away and I can have a Christmas holiday. He can ring me up if he's got issues, but I can be, sitting in the snow. So there was a cutover phase there at the end of December, and go live, bang, 4th of January, or whenever everybody gets back into the office. Okay, so that's how we ran it. So that was live and a little bit of live support, and then of course all good project management practice. A few months after, you sit down and you have a lessons learned. What went well? What didn't we do well? What would we do next time? And then a little bit after that, of course, benefits management or measurement. Did we achieve what we said we were going to achieve? So out of the little areas where we had lots of work, actually we had quite a long process. The whole process from initial discussion, if you like, and verification that the business case and the requirements document was right through to benefits measurement is about a year. Okay, but with little pockets of activity. Now that's just kind of a way we chose to do it. Obviously we could have pulled this little lot forward, but don't expect to put the CD in, install Project Server and have a system. You will, but it'll fail for you. Okay, it'll be a technical success, but it'll be a business failure because you haven't spent the time doing the thinking, the processing, the user acceptance testing, the procedures, the touch points, the documentation, etc., etc.
I think I'll just add to the timeline part is that you can do it faster, but because I was the one engaged with Ben, obviously I'm not sitting there doing nothing with a client base growing as fast as what it was. So we planned that it would go in from the 1st of January 2010 rather than trying to rush something through mid-year when actually we could have caused an enormous amount of problems. And also with the Christmas period, it's a good time to implement changes like that within the business because most people are off. So you get free use of doing everything you want. Most projects stop for that period. We have change freezes within our business during that period, even on the customer platforms, to make sure that stability is there. So it served our purpose. You can do it quicker. If you devote your time 100%, there is no reason why that can't be substantially brought forward.
Okay. So now we get on to the good and bad and ugly, which is all Paul's piece.
Yeah. So I thought I'd just pick out some key points. Obviously, I want to get the best utilisation of my project managers and then focusing on delivering benefit to our clients. In our old processes, I don't believe we had that. I believe that we were so focused on making sure internal things happened that we actually took the focus off what we're being paid to do, which is actually assist our clients and deliver that solution to them. So I see that I've now got project managers that manage rather than dealing with admin. From the moment they've completed the project plan, every resource on that project will know what tasks sit within their remit. Visual content of work. So by this I mean a resource can go into their My Task page in Project Server and actually see over the period of whatever you define it to be, every task that they've been assigned to in that period. I mean, I limit it to seven working days, because once you start filling up the screen with too much info, it takes their focus off actually dealing with what's in the next 7 days. It doesn't say that it doesn't automatically populate the net every day as it goes forward, it will, but it will keep the resource focused on what's there. Also means that the project manager doesn't have to keep emailing out the work packages or emailing out to say, have you started this task? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. I'm delayed. We can get a visibility of that task being managed through Project Server. Single workspace, and this is one of the major benefits to me, is that everything is there. I don't have to go to 5 different people's drives or shared drives or whatever to find this information. And for me, I had a quality audit back in February, and it was the easiest one I've ever had to do because everything was in the workspace. And his auditors took the auditor through a journey of how we start a project to how we finish a project, and got the tick in the box and showed him live examples of where that's happened. You can tailor the workspace to meet your business needs as well, which is also important and is one of the lessons learnt that we had out of ours. There was a lot of feedback in changes that people wanted to make to the workspace. Up-to-date views on project progress. For me, another godsend. I can go in there and see, okay, I know these tasks were supposed to happen across these projects. These are ones that have been completed. These are ones that have not. Why haven't they? Where's our blocking points? Is it the number of resources, or is it people just not performing to how they should be? One thing that I think is very hard to measure in a business case, but I can tell you it has made an immense difference in Attenda, is the reduction in mistakes. By that I mean missing pertinent information that has been submitted for that project. When we take a client-sold nice sales document, we actually turn it into an Excel spreadsheet with the detailed configuration of each server in that solution based on the client requirements. Things like working off wrong versions. Everybody must have experienced this, whereas in a project you have a document that gets circulated, someone updates the document, doesn't circulate it to every member of the team. One of the people's actually working off an older version, and actually you've got a problem because you're actually delivering something that wasn't actually required, or so you're losing money. This has definitely reduced that problem. We find that the number of errors we have in our project delivery now have come down dramatically. One I like, accountability. Whereas before everybody pointed the finger at my project management team to say they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Now we're focusing on the plans, and the resource gets that task in their workspace instantly. They cannot say no anymore, we didn't get that work package, or it didn't have the right information in that work package. We link this to our DMS. Any changes to our work packages can be automatically applied across all projects, because the way we do it is we get them to download the latest copy of the template for that particular task off of the DMS.
This is absolutely key. Can I just butt in?
Yeah.
So one of the things we did was Paul had and his team have a host of work packages. So if we've got a resource who needs to do X, Y, Z, there's a task list there for him or her. We don't put that in project. That's actually well documented in a Word document or an Excel document with a pass or fail at the end of it. So one of Paul's project managers will say to his resource management guy, I need a Linux build engineer to build this type of server. Resource management guy gets the right guy, he does all that through Project Server. But attached to that, or associated with that line in the project for build Linux servers, is a work package that's associated in the project template. So all of these are predefined. okay, by Paul and his team and the templates. So we find our Linux engineer, we send that Linux engineer, we publish the plan, that Linux engineer in his My Tasks view gets a task that says, start this on Monday, finish it on Thursday, build a Linux server, and here's the URL to the work package, which linked back to Paul's DMS, document management system. So all the resource has to do is log in each day, have a look at what I'm doing today, click on that link, pops it open in Word, there's your list of things that you need to finish for this version of this build. Okay, so it's actually that simple. So it stops team members kind of this accountability. I didn't know I was doing this, or I was on the wrong version. Just reduces that whole number of mistakes, if you like.
Yeah, especially if so our work package may contain a standard build guide for a Windows SQL server. If we've updated those build documents, because we build that in the standard way throughout, it's an instant way of making sure they're working off the latest versions. If, for instance, we didn't do that through Project Server, we're reliant on someone going to the DMS and trying to find that document. Often not the case. Often they've stored an old copy on their desktop, which actually means that they're actually delivering a wrong build for that customer. So it is vital, the accountability part, and also it frees up, as I say, the project management time at the start-up of a project. I mean, an average start-up phase for an Attenda project is about 7 days for a client-facing project, from contract and design sign-off through to us actually starting a detailed design phase. We actually reduced the effort of the project manager in that to about 2 days, whereas it used to take the whole 7 days of chasing, asking for resource, waiting a day for a resource, sending out the work packages for resource, re-updating the work package when the resource says, I'm on holiday that day. Yeah, it was a constant chase-down program, and we had to fix it. And thankfully we have. So this is my writing, so Ben picked me up on. One of the things that we've learned is that it would be great to be able to manage document workflows through Project Server. In 2007, you get WSS, is it version 3? 3 deployed with it. That doesn't give you out of the box document management capabilities, so you can apply code to it. So I'm not a technical person, I'm a user. So my technical team have to write a certain bit of code unless you've got SharePoint fully deployed. So you can utilise SharePoint, but you can't do this through. So for instance, I'll give you an example. My solution architects who engage with a customer first of all produce a document that goes out for internal approval within Attenda. What I'd like to try and do is that they create those documents in our project workspace, and we manage the approvals of those documents in our project workspace. Likewise, there's a second document that comes along called the build configuration document that we've produced at the project delivery stage. And again, without having the full SharePoint deployment or developing a piece of SharePoint code, you can't do that as out of the box on 2007. Minor, but I think I'll be fair here, because it's our learning in the system as well. Suddenly, when I started exposing this product to the rest of the business, they're all jumping up in the air. Can we use it? Can we use it? Can we use it? And I'm like, whoa, calm down. Ultimately, it's scaled for my use, but now actually, I'll come on to a slide of what we're looking to do in the future. I think this day and age, there should be a standard reporting suite available from any product of this type that gives us industry standards, rather than having to develop our own writing SQL queries and what have you. I think we need to, when products move on, I've seen a couple of products outside Microsoft, and there is reporting available out of the box where they've focused on what management want to see. Not what project managers want to see, but as a whole, collective, what do the business drivers want to see out of these products? And I think that there's some work that can be improved in here. Whether that's on the roadmap, I'm not sure. Okay, and this last one is very similar, but I know that you can report on task actuals within Project Server. We actually develop a project template. So within our Project Server, we've got a standard delivery project template, which, unless I go and manually update that to tell it how long a standard task now takes, because obviously we're developing business tools internally to automate, take the user effort out of that, it's all driven by manual reporting and me going in to manually create it. What would be good is if you've got a standard task that's within Project Server, and you're seeing over the course of time that actually that task is not taking 4 days anymore, people are completing it within 2 days, rather than relying on someone coming saying to me, can you adjust the template project timeline for that? It'd be good to say, out of Project Server, how can we automatically update the template project plans for standard tasks? The one thing, so I mentioned it earlier on, so if you deploy Project Server and if you drive your resourcing from it like we do, absolutely categorically think about what happens if it's not available. Okay? We did, but the one thing, we've got highly resilient platforms, but the problem was is we hosted them in our offices, not in our data centre. It's something that I'm looking to fix now. When we lost the power to our offices, we lost Project Server. Okay? And one of the 2 days, you probably get away with 1 day, but in the second day, the resources were like, "What am I doing this week?" So we had to, it's not a Project Server problem; it's a business problem. I see this as, so it's something that I would take away, and actually am looking at how we actually manage that in the future. One of the things we're going to do is move these systems out of our offices, because we don't host any client system in our offices. Why do we host our own? It's a small little lesson learned. Do you want me to do this one, Ben, or is it?
Yeah, you go for this one.
Try to give you some idea of how much effort was spent in that period of time, that timeline that Ben. So I say approximately 25 days. I actually say that was the maximum amount of time and effort that I had to put into it. If you understand project management principles, you will find it quite easy to understand, and your thought process will be able to drive it through. But I didn't rely on my own experience. What I did is, when we got to product, or I needed input from the key resources within our team or from within our business, we would bring those in to run things past them. So my project management team, I went and presented how I plan to roll this out and how I would plan to use it. Obviously they're champing at the bit, because it takes away all of that management of work packages through emails. Whereas the resource managers saw, hold on, you're putting some accountability back on my people. I'm not so keen on that, because I can't hide behind it anymore. But it's about the communication path that we took. I'd probably say set-up time, 10 days solidly of me and you, yep. Half day here, half day there. Yep. 15 days of communication tools that I'm going to use, run-throughs, selling, going around the business, asking the question before I put something in front of them. So like the internal selling parts of it. And then getting the team members up to speed. So approximately 50 to 60 resources within the business that would use it day one. Currently got about 120 users of the environment, if not more. Number of projects, probably now about 200 to 250 per year going through it. So quite a substantial uptake on what the original business case, and we also use it for internal projects now as well. Although the work that Ben and I did was initially around the client-facing projects, and we will be looking at trying to integrate that with our client portal. So Attenda have already got a client portal where our clients can go on and log tickets, see the status of tickets, see the reports of the performance of their applications. We are looking to put an integration of the tool into that, so they can see project status, project documents and what have you. Ben, we agreed 20 days of consultancy up front. Did we know that was enough at the time? No, but actually we've got a day or so left, haven't we? A day and a half.
I'm going to have to stop those. They're going to run out very shortly.
Yeah. Well, we've done what we needed to. We paid for 20 days, and I think that if we said 17, 18 days was enough of the time.
Yeah.
And to be truthful, I probably wasted some of Ben's time, because where I was supposed to be sitting with him, I ended up getting dragged off to do internal meetings and what have you, so had to leave Ben to run it on his own devices, which he did very well. So I'll skip. So in total, the total cost of deploying Project Server with all of my requirements at that time is around 45 days. And we'll come on to the benefit.
Okay. Yeah, so just a bit conscious of time. Well, we don't know count time. Key consultancy deliverables. So what did I do in those 20 days? You can achieve a lot in 20 days, although you really have to be focused for it, and your customer has to be focused for it. So remember the proof of concept, I work out whether my customer is going to be focused for it, and hopefully they work out whether I'm going to be focused for it. That's key deliverable for me in a proof of concept. But we did the fast track proof of concept. Does Project Server do what it says on the tin? Will it meet your requirements? I'm never going to go out and sell something to somebody or promise something that I can't deliver. Because as I said at the beginning, I'm the guy who invoices for customer as well. And if I can't look them in the eye and justify that invoice, then, shame on me. Okay, so that's what the proof of concept does. And then the pilot, really, before we roll into live, is just to make sure that we're hitting that first set of business requirements that we can configure and touch into the processes that are running within Attenda. And when we talk about processes, so Paul had spent 2008 working out what processes he needed in order to scale that department. But of course, when you put in Project Server, some of those processes potentially going to become redundant, and you're going to need to create others as well, and others are going to need to be modified. So you need to kind of look at that. So that's kind of what the pilot does. Workshops, training, process guys. We did write a little bit of VBA. There's lots of people who can customize everything in Project Server. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just for Paul's team, we just need a little bit of VBA, which ran every day on the client, or each time a project was published. And again, that was fairly easy to do. So I guess those were the key consultancy deliverables, alongside a whole host of knowledge transfer, education, help, hand-holding, all of those supporting things. Are we going down the right track? It's Paul's road, but really I've got to guide him down that road to make sure at the end of it, there's a nice pot of gold for Attenda. Okay, so that was the deliverables.
So last couple of slides, and then open to any questions, are around where we are today. So where we are today, we have definitely a faster streamlined process from project start to project closure. We have a one-stop shop for all of our project deliverables. Okay, so the workspace is the one-stop shop. Resource profiling, I can't explain to you how if you've got a company of project managers and resources that deliver under those project managers, this is one of the major benefits to me in my time. I can really present in a short space of time where we have conflicts and start putting action plans in place to recover some of those areas. Again, why do I want to pay a project manager a decent amount of money to actually just send emails all day and actually not manage anything? To me, the key about project management is actually issuing the workload and then making sure they get that workload issued back, not to have to continually chase people on email. So making people accountable. Figures-wise, I've said that at least 16 hours per project has been saved. I would tell you now that's a conservative. That's what I told my bosses. I reckon it's more than that we've saved per project throughout the project life cycle. And that equates to over 100k just on the project management side. Also, what I can tell you is that we can probably, if we're speeding up the project management process, we're also speeding up the delivery process. If people are delivering more servers, more services back to our customers faster, there's also a revenue aspect. but I didn't bother. It's one of those benefits you cannot measure, really, because you cannot say it's solely through the deployment of Project Server. Other parts of the business, financial forecasting, so I use it to see, are we going to hit our targets next quarter? What's the proposed sales pipeline going to deliver to us, and are we going to be able to deliver it within that quarter? And progress against projects, so I can actually issue progress reports to our senior management across our project platform. What next? So definitely want to start looking at Project Server 2010, and the idea is that we actually build that within our big data center infrastructure on our cloud platform that we host for our clients. There's better integration with Outlook. The tool within Project Server 2010 and the integration with Outlook, I wouldn't say it was fantastic. It does its job, but I think it's a lot better in 2010. So, as I was saying, once we deployed Project Server, other areas of the business are suddenly champing at the bit to get on and have their own resource management aspects of it, which I've had to beat them off at the moment because it's not built for their needs. Interaction with our Attenda client portal and financial management system. So, our time tracking is done through an Oracle Financials application. Trying to link Project Server into that so build resources can actually just feed that into Project Server and then it spits out their weekly timesheets into our Oracle Financial system, which is where we measure budgets against what we delivered the project for. And that was the last point on there. Thank you for your time, and if you've got any questions for myself or Ben, feel free to ask away.
The integration with SharePoint, is that just with the document system you refer to your work packages? Is there more?
So all we've done is created a URL link from Project Server into our own document management system. I haven't sort of
Which is not SharePoint.
embedded. It is SharePoint, yeah, it is. But we've got a SharePoint platform within Attenda and a separate Project Server environment. What I didn't do on the project was work on integrating that with any existing system other than providing. So what the user will do is actually click on the link and it will go from Project Server and just bring up the page from that document management system. There isn't what I would call integration with it as such, technical integration.
Yeah, we took the least risk approach, which was leave the existing share. So it's a MOS installation for 2007. Leave that alone because that's business critical, running some stuff at the moment, and then build a separate Project Server farm, which is basically a couple of servers. We just link the URLs in. That, it's that simple.
We will do in 2010 though. So what we will do is migrate. There's no point us having multiple SharePoint platforms deployed. So we'll migrate not only the Project Server, but we'll migrate on the document management system and our intranet onto the newly deployed platform.
I think you've got, from a business perspective, they've got the process and understanding to do this now, whereas perhaps for 2007 bit, we didn't want to take that risk on board. Now that risk is understood, we can take it on board and begin to mitigate that as we move forward.
Was there much customization or configuration changes from out of the box to suit the needs with the VBA coding?
The only so there's obviously Project Server is mainly about configuration. So it was pretty much all standard configuration except for a little bit of VBA coding where we set one of the task fields on a project save.
It depends. Yeah, it depends how much you want. Like we've spent a bit of time tailoring the project workspace. So I've got standard project workspace templates. Every time I publish a project, I get a standard templated, Attenda logoed project workspace. So you need to invest time and effort into how you want it to look and feel, but that's out of the box look and feel. It's not anything that we're doing that's any different than what you would do as a standard deployment, in my view. The VBA code was around making sure that we don't publish any task that's been marked as 100% complete, because what you don't want to do is litter up your resource screens with well, these tasks are 100% complete and they're not going to drop off for 5 days. Every time we publish the plan, it looks through the project plan, it says, right, this task is now 100% complete. I want that removed. I don't want it published to the user. So that was a minor piece of customisation.
The majority of the projects follow some waterfall, or do you have any mixtures of agile and anything like that?
So yeah, we do. So internally, we have some agile type projects. It is a mixture. What myself and Ben worked on was the standard client deployment projects, but we do within Attenda started using it for agile type deliveries. Although we do use is it TFM for that as well, Team Foundation.
TFS, Team Foundation Server, Visual Studio stuff.
Yeah, so they do use that for agile as well.
Which of course Project Server link into as well, and certainly in the 2010 version that's cleaned up quite nicely.
Any questions?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. There is an Attenda case study on the web, along with lots of Microsoft case studies, so you can just bing that. Project Server info is there, and obviously mine and Paul's details and websites, if you want to get in touch, are there. So thank you very much from me.
Thank you very much from me.
From him. Bring me some. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you. We're around. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.